"This land belongs to your sister now." My father's voice thundered across the fields as he climbed into his tractor. "She actually knows what to do with it." I stood frozen, dirt still clinging to my fingers. "My name is Olivia Parker," and I watched in silent disbelief as my father began tearing through the organic crops I'd spent the last 2 years cultivating. Tomorrow was supposed to be the grand opening of my farm, the dream I had built from scratch after graduating from agricultural college. I'd spent the early morning tending to my heirloom tomatoes and rare vegetables, grown using traditional methods my grandmother taught me. The soil here was special. Everyone in the valley knew that. Grandma used to say it had a mind of its own, wise, selective. Chose its caretaker. Then my parents arrived, dragging Amanda behind them. I should have known something was wrong when I saw her wearing designer boots into a field. "We need to talk about the future of this farm," Mom said, her sugary tone making my stomach turn. "Amanda just finished her business degree. She has exciting plans." I didn't back down. "This is my farm. Grandma left it to me for a reason." Dad snapped. "Only because she didn't know Amanda would study agricultural business. Your sister has real plans. Contracts, scale, profit. Not this organic nonsense." Amanda gave a smug smile and tapped her tablet. "I've already secured deals with major supermarket chains. They don't want quirky vegetables. They want volume. We're clearing everything. Starting over." "No," I said firmly, remembering Grandma's lessons. "This land thrives on care, not chemicals. It stays organic." Dad exploded. "Listen to yourself. Amanda knows how to make this land profitable. You're clinging to fairy tales." Before I could react, he stormed to his tractor. I hadn't even noticed he'd brought it. Within minutes, he was destroying everything. 2 years of sweat and soul, crushed under steel wheels. Mom begged me to sign the transfer papers. Amanda rattled off corporate figures, and I stood there, staring at the ruins of my dream. "You can help if you want," Mom offered, as if that made it better. "Help." On the farm Grandma entrusted to me. I remembered the day she handed me the deed, her voice soft but certain. "This land knows who it belongs to, Olivia. Trust it." As Dad made another pass with the tractor, I noticed something, just a flicker of green in the disturbed soil. Amanda rolled her eyes. "This is pointless," she said. "The papers are ready. And Dad sits on the Agricultural Commission. We can force a transfer." "You're not qualified," she added. I dropped to my knees and touched the earth. It was warm, alive. In the distance, thunder rumbled, though the sky above was clear. "Are you even listening?" Mom snapped. "This is happening, Olivia. Your sister has investors waiting." I stood slowly, letting the soil crumble from my hands. "You can tear up my crops. You can threaten me. But this land," I met their eyes. "It chooses." Dad cut the engine and jumped down, looking satisfied. "Enough with the mystical garbage. This isn't one of your grandmother's bedtime stories. This is business." I looked at the ruined field, thinking of Grandma's journals. The secrets of this land. The way certain plants flourished here. Only here. "You should have waited," I said, voice calm. "The soil remembers." Amanda rolled her eyes again. "I'll have a real farming team here by next week. You'll see how it's done." Thunder rolled again, louder this time. I felt it, not just in the air but beneath my feet. The ground pulsed with something old, something awake. "You've made your point," I said. "Now leave. The land needs to rest." "We're not finished," Dad shouted. "You'll sign those papers." But I was already walking toward Grandma's old farmhouse, her words echoing. "Once the land chooses its keeper, heaven help anyone who tries to take it away." Behind me, their voices faded into the wind and the strange, steady rumble from the ground. Tomorrow was supposed to be my farm's beginning. Instead, everything lay ruined by my father's rage and Amanda's ambition. But 3 days later, something remarkable happened. I stepped outside and gasped. Sprouts, vivid, green, and unmistakably mine, were pushing up through the ravaged soil. Everywhere the tractor had passed, life had returned. When Amanda returned with a hired expert a week later, she stared, dumbfounded. "This is impossible," she whispered. "These plants shouldn't even be germinating yet." The soil was overturned, completely. I just smiled. The land had made its choice. And it wasn't done yet. I stood at the edge of my field, watching Amanda's designer boots sink into the rich earth. She winced at the mess, clearly regretting her choice of footwear. Beside her, the expert she'd brought, a man in a spotless suit, scanned the field with a tablet, confusion etched across his face. "These crops shouldn't be sprouting yet," he muttered. "According to standard growth cycles, you shouldn't be seeing this kind of development for weeks." But there they were. Tomato plants already knee-high, thick-stemmed and vibrant. My rare purple carrots were breaking through the soil, their tops an almost glowing green. Even the prized heritage corn was returning, stronger, heartier than before. I knelt down and ran my fingers through the warm, dark earth. "It's the soil," I said simply. "It has its own way." Amanda's face turned crimson. "Oh, give it a rest. This isn't magic. It's clearly some trick. You must have replanted everything." "With what resources?" I asked quietly, brushing dirt from my palm. "You froze my accounts. You called my suppliers and told them I was out. You tried to shut me down. And still, the soil brought everything back." The expert wandered deeper into the field, looking more unsettled by the minute. "These growth patterns are unprecedented," he admitted, glancing nervously at Amanda. "And the soil composition, I've never seen anything like it." I remembered Grandma's quiet warnings about the land's temperament, how it responded to care and harmony, how it rejected force. The data on that man's screen was just confirming what she always knew. This land chooses. 2 weeks later, my fields were thriving beyond belief. Not just growing but overflowing with life. The vegetables were bigger, richer in color and flavor than anything I'd ever produced before. Word spread quickly. First local farmers, then the media. Soon they were calling it a miracle farm. My parents scrambled to control the story. Dad pulled favors at the Agricultural Commission, demanding a formal investigation. Mom tried to charm the reporters, pitching Amanda as the visionary behind it all. But the soil wasn't fooled. Every attempt Amanda made to force modern practices onto the land failed, spectacularly. Machinery broke down without explanation. Fertilizers washed away in sudden rains that only fell where chemicals were used. Even contractors refused to come back, unnerved by the strange occurrences. "This is insane," Amanda shrieked one morning, standing beside another piece of immobilized equipment stuck in inexplicable mud. "You're sabotaging us." I didn't even look up from my harvest. My tomatoes, the size of softballs, glistened in the sunlight. "I haven't done anything," I said truthfully. "The land knows what it wants." Demand at the local farmers' market exploded. Restaurants from the city reached out, eager for supply. Even organic certifiers came by and left speechless. Amanda's supermarket deals began to fall apart one by one. No major brand wanted to tie itself to something it couldn't predict or control. Her careful business plan unraveled. Her expensive machinery rusted in the shed. And the land, it only grew stronger. One evening, as I sat on Grandma's porch, watching golden light roll over my thriving fields, I heard the rumble of Dad's truck. He stepped out slowly. There was no anger left in his face, only age, regret, and something like awe. "The Agricultural Commission wants to study your methods," he said, not meeting my eyes. "They're calling it a breakthrough. Amanda's investors are gone." I nodded, waiting. He looked out at the waving crops. "Your grandmother, she tried to explain all this once. Why she left the land to you." I didn't listen. Thunder rolled in the distance, even though the sky was cloudless. Beneath our feet, the soil gave off a gentle hum, a low vibration only the chosen could feel. "The land chooses its keeper," I said softly, repeating Grandma's words. "And once it chooses, Heaven help anyone who tries to interfere. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time he understood. This wasn't about money or legacy or business. It was about something older. Something sacred. Something that had never belonged to them. Only to the one who listened. The sun dipped low, casting long golden shadows across my miraculous fields, and I smiled. The soil had made its choice. And now the world was beginning to see it too. 6 months after my father tried to destroy my farm, I stood among rows of thriving crops as a National Geographic team snapped photos and took soil samples. They were calling it the miracle of Parker Farm. "My God," one of the researchers murmured, gently touching a tomato plant heavy with fruit. "The yield, the vibrancy, it's like nothing we've ever seen. The soil is almost adaptive." I glanced toward the edge of the field where Amanda stood quietly. Her usual designer wardrobe replaced by a simple sundress and work boots. Time and failure had changed her. After her business collapsed, she had been forced to reconsider everything she believed about success, control, and the value of tradition. A photographer called out, "Miss Parker, could you explain your methods? How do you get results like this?" Before I could answer, Amanda stepped forward. Her voice was soft, sincere. "She listens to the land," she said. "Something I should have done from the beginning." The change in my family had been slow but real. It began the morning my mother arrived, holding my grandmother's old recipe box. Worn, handwritten, and full of notes not just on food, but on the land itself. "I found this in the attic," Mom said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your grandmother tried to tell us why it had to be you. We were too busy chasing modern solutions to understand." Inside the box were decades of clippings, notes, and journal entries. Records of how the land had thrived only in the hands of family members who followed Grandma's careful, respectful methods. Dad took longer to come around. The Agricultural Commission had dismissed his complaints and instead turned my farm into a case study for sustainable farming. His pride had been bruised deeply. But one evening, I found him sitting on Grandma's old rocking chair on the porch, staring out at the fields. "These plants," he said slowly, "they're the same varieties your grandmother used to grow, aren't they?" He nodded. "She told me the soil here was special." His voice cracked. "She said it knew who belonged. I thought it was just a story." The setting sun lit the field in amber. The crops seemed to glow, vibrant, alive, radiating something no machine or fertilizer could replicate. "I was wrong, Olivia," he said. "About all of it." The story of Parker Farm spread far beyond our quiet valley. Agricultural programs reached out. Universities sent students. Organic co-ops wanted consultations. But even as science tried to understand it, the land remained unchanged in its silent truth. It only worked for those who listened. Amanda's change was the most surprising of all. After her investors walked away, she spent days on the edge of the fields, watching. At first, I thought she was planning her next takeover. But then she started asking questions. Real ones. "I don't expect to take over," she said one morning as we pulled glowing orange carrots from the soil. "But maybe you could teach me the way Grandma taught you." And so I did. The soil hummed its quiet approval as I showed her how to plant by feel, not formula. How to observe the rhythms of the land instead of imposing her own. Her business degree didn't go to waste. She used it to help create a sustainable distribution model that preserved the farm's values while opening it to new markets. Later that day, as the National Geographic team packed up, I stood watching my family on the porch. Mom was arranging a basket of vegetables for dinner. Dad was explaining Grandma's crop rotation system to a researcher, and Amanda was gently tending to the seedlings in the greenhouse. "You know," came a voice from behind me, "your grandmother would be proud." It was Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor who'd known Grandma all her life. She looked out over the glowing fields. She always said this land had a way of teaching people what mattered most. I smiled, remembering the day Dad tried to destroy everything. The land hadn't just revived my crops. It had restored my family. That evening, we sat around a long wooden table for dinner, everything on our plates grown from the farm. The tension that once strained every interaction had softened into something warmer. Real. Amanda and I shared smiles instead of sharp words. Mom listened, asked questions. Dad offered quiet wisdom from lessons he used to ignore. To the land, Amanda said, raising her glass. And to the sister who knew how to listen. We all raised ours in reply. And beneath our feet, I felt it, that warm, steady hum like a heartbeat pulsing through the soil. It was the sound of something ancient and alive. Something that no contract or corporation could ever own. Grandma had been right all along. The land knew its keeper.